children, young people, elderly, middle-aged in this state that have no health care, that rely on the charity hospital system for health care. Now, even with Obamacare, it would have given a chance for those people that could afford to pay for some form of health care. Now they do not even have that chance because this governor has chose not to participate.
And, you know, the thing that gets me is the Republican Party is known for law and order.
True.
Lock them up, throw the key away, stick the needle in their arm. If they've done something against the law, they need to pay the price. That's what I've grown up with. And for years and years, that's what you heard. Candidate running for some office that may have pardoned someone that went and done something bad or something, they hung it around their necks. They hung it around their necks and beat them to death with it. And now, Chief Justice John Roberts of the Supreme Court sided with the liberals on the court. The Affordable Care Act, Obamacare as they call it, is the law of the land.
That's correct.
And this governor is refusing to honor the law of the land. I hear from Congressman Bill Cassidy, MD, don't let me forget that, MD, that they want to repeal Obamacare.
That is correct.
And that's fine. That's fine if you want to repeal it, but what do you have? What do you got for me besides selling insurance across state lines and medical savings accounts that's going to insure 30 million people? I don't know how many uninsured in the 6th district.
I would imagine in the 6th district there's probably close to maybe 100,000 or better.
That sounds like a low number, really.
Yeah, but if you look at the realistic part of the population taking into the rural areas, you know, into your major cities, you know, that number probably is low.
Right.
But from a perspective point, when you take, and I'm just going to use the figure of 100,000,
right,
and have no insurance or are uninsured, or elderly that are relying on Medicare, Medicaid for prescriptions, health care, and it is not going to be there, then basically what you're doing in this state is you're deciding right now as being, and I hate to use this term, who lives and who dies. Because these people are not going to have the health care they need.
I just don't understand it. Like I said, this Medicaid expansion that's in the, which was one of the parts that wasn't held up by the Supreme Court, that you can't force the states to do that, but it's 3 years, free medical care for the citizens of the state of Louisiana, and then it drops off as it goes a little bit. But,
that's correct.
I just don't understand. Now, that would have to fill the hole that you've been talking about, Ed.
That's correct. It probably would fill the hole. But, you know, when you look at it, the secretary come back and said, well, we're going to look at, for the right now, facing on a budget cut would be around $522 million. Well, if you take about $280 million of state matching money, brings you back up to the roughly $800 million again. So where are you at? The only object they have is to close, privatize, or as they say, work with a public-private partnership with private hospitals in order to do this. Again, who loses? You're going to have longer lines in the emergency room. You're going to have people deciding which hospital is going to provide what care, if care is going to be provided. I'm going to give you a prime example. I believe it was in Washington Parish. A gentleman, he, I think, was in his 60s. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's how the gentleman was. He did odd jobs for a living. Went to the charity hospital in the emergency room. The doctors there felt that he needed a specialized care. Thought he was having, I think, a heart attack. They sent him by ambulance to another hospital. When he went to that hospital, well, en route to that hospital, the hospital he was at called the ambulance driver and told him to return, that the other hospital could not accept him because he was uninsured. Sent him back to the hospital and he died in the emergency room.
Wow.
Now, to do any citizen, and I'm saying this deep from within my heart for the passion that I have for the citizens of Louisiana, no citizen in this great state, regardless of how wealthy they are or how poor they are, should be denied health care.
Not like that, man. Not like that.
And this come out during joint budget last month, that this actually happened.
Wow. Ed, I mean, I'm just sitting here speechless. I mean, you know, you bring a lot of information to the show.
Well,
but
you know,
I'm just sitting here. I don't know what to say. You know,
it's amazing that we're in the 21st century. We're not back in the teens, the 20s, and the 30s. You know, even doing Huey Long. And everybody said, you know, well, he was one of the biggest crooks as far as governors in the state of Louisiana. But he developed the charity hospital system for the people.
Right. You know, the scary part, Ed, to me, is I think that Governor Jindal's going to get the call to be on the ticket, to be vice president on the ticket. I've said this for weeks now. I don't think Rob Portman in Ohio wants it. If you look at the battleground states, the swing states, Obama is leading in every one of them. Correct. Except North Carolina, which is too close to call.
That is correct.
Even Florida. And I don't think a Rob Portman, maybe a Scott Walker, but Wisconsin, when you had the recall on Scott Walker earlier this year, 19% of everybody coming out of the voting booth that voted not to recall Scott Walker said they were voting for President Obama. Go figure, right?
You know, I think overall this election is going to be it's going to be a lot closer than people really think.
I think it's over.
Well,
that's my opinion.
I think it's going to be close. I have to say, you know, even from a labor standpoint, I do agree with certain issues of President Obama. I can't find myself voting for a Republican ticket.
Well, it's not the Republican, it's the vulture capitalist.
Well, Mike, I would think it's worse than that. When you have a man running for president that refuses to show his tax returns,
right,
refuses to let you know how much money he has in banks across the pond, you know,
Swiss bank accounts,
you know, and then
that's a little tough.
And then you have someone who cuts down and ships jobs and lays people off for no particular reason.
And then trying to run from it.
That's right.
Trying to run from it.
I cannot sit here and say, yeah, this is the right ticket.
Here's a guy that signed the model for Obamacare in Massachusetts, and now he's against it.
Thank you. This doesn't make sense, does it?
Well, it's okay. You see, I see what he's saying, Ed. And we're talking with Ed Parker. Ed, he's saying it's okay if all 50 states do it individually, but not on a federal level would cover everybody. If
all 50 states did it individually, it would be no different than a federal law.
Vermont pulled out of the ACA.
Right.
They've got their own deal, man. What is it, single payer, Ed?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand. The people with those socialist senators are living better than us in the red state, huh? Ed, it's about time to wrap it up. I hope you stay for another show.
Be glad to, Mike.
For tomorrow. This is Baton Rouge Labor Radio. I'm Michael D. Day, and we're proudly broadcast on WHYR 96.9 FM. We're rebroadcast on Facebook at Baton Rouge Local Union 198, and you can catch us on YouTube, www.youtube.com/Baton Rouge Labor Radio. And as we always say here on Baton Rouge Labor Radio, if you work for free, you'll always have a job. Live better. Go ahead, Ed.
No, go ahead.
Live better, work union. Have a nice day.